Welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, healer, tarot extraordinaire, and your local witch next door. And today I'll be talking about the Two of Swords. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. If you love the show, the best way to support it is by listening daily, leaving a review, and subscribing or following in your favorite podcast app. For monthly hangouts, tarot Q&As, individual readings, and more, you can join the Everyday Tarot Patreon family. If you're local to the greater Puget Sound area, you can join me for our next Let's Talk Tarot meetup group event. You can check the show notes for the link to the newest event. And if you're interested in a free PDF with the 2025 5-card tarot spread I created just for you at the beginning of this year, you can get that by joining my newsletter list. My weekly newsletter always has the most up-to-date information on upcoming events, presentations, and more. And if you don't already know, I'm a sex and relationships therapist seeing clients virtually all over Washington State. I love working with queer, poly, and witchy clients who might be struggling with anxiety, chronic pain or illness, communication issues, self-advocacy, and sex. Book a free 20-minute consultation now to make sure we're a good fit to work together. And you can find the links for any of these offers, and the show notes are on my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, in addition to the images of the cards that I pull. All right, so welcome to Season 8, where I'm talking all about the Suit of Swords, going through each card one per episode. If you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, you can check those out. Season 1, I went through tarot basics. Seasons 2 and 3 were all about the major arcana and an overview of the 4 suits. In Season 4, I talked about tarot and pop culture. Season 5 was all about tarot spreads. Season 6 about the Suit of Wands. And Season 7, the Suit of Pentacles. So like I said, we're into Season 8 now, where I'm talking all about the Suit of Swords. If you want to hear an episode dedicated to an overview of the Suit of Swords, you can check out episode 37. And today we're talking about the Two of Swords. Now, so some common images or symbols for this specific card include pillars, crossed swords, a crescent moon, the themes of choice or intuition, being in an in-between or sort of limbo, blindfolded, and justice. So pictures from the decks that I'm looking at today will be on my website. So the first one I'm looking at right now is from the Therapist Who Tarot deck, prompts by Drea Bloom and images by Rebecca Bloom. So again, this is the Two of Swords in this deck. There's not a tarot deck guidebook that goes with it, but there is a word on the front of each card associated with it. So this one says choice. And then on the back, there are 3 sort of reflection questions. So it says, what is distracting you? What is out of balance in your life? And on what should you focus more? So again, there's this element of sort of choice, like balance, when we think of like the scales or the scales of justice. And then thinking about like where is our focus being put and where is our focus being maybe taken away through distraction. In the Desert Illuminations Tarot deck by Lindsay D. Williams, for this card, there's like a woman who's blindfolded. She has, in this one, these swords are changed to daggers. So she has a dagger in each hand, and she sort of has them like her arms crossed on her front, and the daggers are also in her hands there, so sort of right in front of her. And then there's like a crescent moon at the top of the card, and we see stars in the background. And again, she sort of looks like the lady in the like scales of justice card, or what is often depicted there, where again someone is blindfolded, I guess to sort of indicate objectivity perhaps, or like not really knowing the way that the scales are going to go. And then in the Goddess of Love tarot deck by Gabriella Herstick and illustrated by Julie Popescu, there is a statue in the middle. It looks like, okay, I just looked it up, and I believe it's the Egyptian god Isis, who is often depicted nursing her son, the god Horus. Horus was what was coming to mind, but I guess, so again, that's sort of who she's like nursing in the image, but she's standing there. She has this depiction of sort of like um, I think like a moon or something like on her, like as her headdress. Okay, and yeah, I guess it's also supposed to depict like cow horns, which are also associated with her, or sort of like the animal head that is on. So we see her in the middle with Horus, and then we see two pillars. Actually, I hadn't noticed this before, but one is like dark, like black or dark blue, and the other one is light colored. And then we have a sword sort of on top, like transposed on top of each pillar. So again, she's sort of like in between the pillars, which is also what's indicated on the Therapist Who Tarot card. It's like a person sort of in between these two pillars. Behind her we see a pyramid, we see like images of, I think, I can't tell if it's like mountains or the ocean. It's very blue, um, but sort of this landscape behind her. And then we also see that there's like this almost like field of roses at her feet. So we see all this greenery, and then we see all these sort of abstractly painted red roses, and then we see the sky that's pink with clouds and another crescent moon. So there's actually a moon in all three of these cards. In the Therapist Who Tarot deck, it's sort of this like halo almost behind the person, and a lot of I guess the moons are all light colored, like gold or yellow, white, and there's a lot of like gold indicated in these cards here. Okay, so then, yeah, when we think about this card a bit more, so my Library of Esoterica tarot book by Toshin, they talk about that the Two of Swords is all about decision making and organization. The Two of Swords insists we face our blocks and break down our barriers. The card also asks us to access rather than deny our feelings. And I don't know about you all, but with the full moon in Scorpio coming up tomorrow for me, on the 12th, or perhaps yesterday for you as you're listening to this, I've definitely been, in a sense, having to access my feelings. I feel like I've been in my feels. I feel like it's been important for me to actually like speak about what I am feeling recently in a way that sometimes has felt blocked in the past and just in the last couple of days. And it's sort of right, this card is asking us to access and reflect on our feelings. And I feel like, I don't know, at least for me, that's what's coming up with this Scorpio full moon, as well as Scorpio is a water sign. Water signs are all in their feels. When we think of water, the ebbing and flowing of water, like high highs and low lows, just a lot of that. So in some of my books, they talk about this card. So in the Fearless Tarot book by Elia Adam, the Two of Swords, they talk about it's all about making peace with in between life stages, in between jobs, in between relationships, in between projects, in between moving situations, in between friendships, career goals, or big plans. The card advises you to find your center amid the transformations swirling around you. The truth is, we are always in a state of in between somewhere in our lives. And the Two of Swords illuminates that the place in your life that feels unresolved is precisely life's greatest magic is happening. Precisely where? So, what feels uneasy or unresolved in your life? Is this an in between situation making you anxious about the future? Can you be at peace with not having everything completely figured out right now? The figure on the Two of Swords is often depicted as also in between the land and sea, in between the new moon and the full moon, in between the two swords she's holding. Yes, in a pose of complete balance, the Two of Swords and the minor arcana complement to the major arcana's Justice card. So again, that's where we sometimes see the woman with the blindfold or the scales of justice. It says this symbolizes that you can't see what is coming and may not possess all the facts yet, but look how calm and centered she is. She is accepted, not seen with her eyes, because she is at peace with her center, with the core of who she really is. It says she is okay with not having everything figured out. She's accepted being between the worlds She knows that the in-between times are when the magic of the natural world happens. Symbolism of distance and isolation pervade this card. The woman confidently wields the powers of her own inner sight. The Two of Swords asks you to make peace with the arena of your life that is still in between. The card reflects nature, where twilight leads to night, which is then followed by dawn. The in-between time is where your higher self is most alert. The lessons you are currently learning are making you wiser, stronger, and more aligned with the center of who you really are. Your best potential is manifesting. You're exactly where you need to be, and everything is transitioning perfectly. I love that there, right? I think sometimes when we're in transition periods, it can feel so uncomfortable or just bad, or we feel like this isn't normal. I need to go on to the next thing. And it can feel like this rush of like discomfort of being in the in between. But really, this card is all about, right, kind of embracing that maybe discomfort of being in between and not necessarily like getting to the other side super quickly. I know it's uncomfortable, but sometimes, right, we can distill down like what it is we really want in those time periods, right? If there's sort of like an in between in your life, sometimes again we can jump into something new just because it feels more comfortable than being in between. But this card is really asking us to sit in that space and again, like to access our feelings, not deny them, like access your intuition, right? Feel like something doesn't feel right. Don't move into it right now, immediately. Sit with a little bit of that discomfort or being in the in between and sort of see what reveals itself coming forth. So, in the Tarot and Astrology book by Corinne Kenner, they talk about that the Two of Swords is associated with the moon in Libra. It says, Lord of Peace restored. Two lunar goddesses merge in the Two of Swords, a card of deep reflection, contemplation, and intuition. We first met the moon in the guise of the High Priestess, a lunar goddess, and a guide to hidden mysteries. When she steps in to serve as sub-ruler of Libra, she merges with Justice, the archetypal goddess assigned to the sign of balance and equanimity. Most renditions of this card feature a young woman seated alone on a shoreline contemplating a difficult choice between two extremes. During the first 10 days of the month, Libra is ruled by the moon, the heavenly orb of intuition, and not reason. So while the woman in the card is focused on a rational and balanced discernment, she's blindfolded and forced to rely on her intuition in order to come to a decision. Visually speaking, the illustration is an echo of the Justice card. In this case, the woman in the card resembles a younger version of the goddess of justice, but she herself is the scale, weighing both sides of an issue. Libra is an air sign, so without the influence of the moon, she might seem detached from the watery, emotional side of the issue. The moon, however, connects her to the emotional realm. The Golden Dawn designers of this card called the moon in Libra the Lord of Peace restored, because when the moon graces Libra with the gift of reflection, acceptance, and understanding. The card itself is balanced at the halfway point of the wheel of the year. Libra is a cardinal sign, and when the sun enters the sign each September, the season of fall begins. She might be torn between two lovers. Libra rules the seventh house of relationships, which suggests that the young woman's concerns originate in the realm of partnerships and attractions. Because the Two of Swords is a Major Arcana card, and because it positions in the early first decan of Libra, it's not unrealistic to imagine that the woman in the card is young and inexperienced in affairs of the heart. It's also possible that she's discovering a foundational truth in the book of love. We have to know and accept ourselves before we can be truly intimate with others. The symbolism of the blindfold does suggest a search for inner peace and understanding. It might also hint at an initiation. Some secret societies blindfold their newest members during their swearing in. Libra is ruled by Venus, the planet of love and affection, and in tarot, Venus corresponds to the Empress card. Like any loving mother, the young woman in the card doesn't see external appearances. Instead, she's attuned to inner beauty, even if the object of her affection has a face only a mother could love. it just makes me again think of the depiction of Isis on this card in the Goddess of Love tarot deck. Just like the loving mother, like Venus, being attuned to like your child or those you care for. It says, in a tarot reading, the Two of Swords often symbolizes a difficult decision or a choice between two paths. And the first decan of Libra usually falls between September 23rd and October 2nd. All right, and then finally in the Tarot for Change book by Jessica Dorr, she talks about that the Two of Swords is sort of this feeling of, recognizing that our thoughts affect our realities, but also that we don't always have to follow them where they go. She talks about the idea, or when we find ourselves saying, like, I have no idea, I don't really know, I'm confused. But sometimes that can be an important thing to sort of think about or recognize, notice in yourself that maybe that is a place where, where you need to like not do some work necessarily, although that's kind of what first comes to mind, but just to like stop and pause for a minute and think about like, how is this confusion serving me or how is it not? She talks about there's too much in this world that we have no control over already for us to be positioning ourselves as powerless over things that we do have a choice in. Sometimes you need to lift your head up, roll your shoulders back, and act like you know. She says, I hear a lot of people say they're confused when what they really mean is, I'm too scared to admit what I know or to do what that knowing requires of me. And that's okay, right? The person in the Two of Swords is a classic example of this. Two swords over the chest protect the heart, the first thing in the line of fire when a tough choice is made. Indecision can be protective, just as keeping the blindfold on can be protective. Holding these two heavy swords still like that cannot be easy, but perhaps it feels safer than making an actual choice and just going for it. It's not always only that we don't want to face the reality of what we know. Sometimes we find comfort in confusion and indecision because we believe that if we were to accept reality, we would not be capable of managing the emotions that would come up. Here is where the sword needs to come out, where you need to get to some rearranging, to keep contact with what you know to be true. And she talks about that this is sort of about relationships, but also can be with our, not necessarily relationship with other people and friendship or other things like that, but also that it's about the relationship with self. We form an alliance with ourselves by choosing narratives that are supportive and empowering rather than disparaging. If you wouldn't describe a friend who was hesitating to act on what they knew to be true as confused or lost, maybe don't talk about yourself that way either. I love that offering of just thinking about that again, like you don't have to sort of blame yourself or shame or think about that, oh, I'm in this in between state and that's not okay. This is so bad. I need to, and again, to sort of focus on the fixing part of it. But that we need to sort of honor being in the in between and that that's okay. And sort of tuning in again to our emotions. To our ideas about what do we actually want to do, right? What are we maybe hiding from ourselves or afraid to say to someone, or again, to have that inner dialogue with self. I was going to look in one of the so in the Desert Illuminations Tarot, they talk about for this card that there are times when you are faced with difficult choices. Sometimes it's impossible to know which outcome will be the best. In the end, all you have left to guide you is your heart and mind. You need to quickly assess both of your choices to see which one aligns with your highest self to move forward or face being stuck at the crossroads, and this is not easy. Trust that even if you can't see the future outcome, the universe is there to guide you no matter what. And if you know about the tarot, right, the next card that comes is the Three of Swords, which is often depicted or like described as the heartbreak card. So it's just kind of interesting to think about that this card is about sort of being in limbo, right? Maybe being afraid of the heartbreak or afraid of what making the decision might mean, and being almost like also afraid of the emotions that are associated with decision or with not knowing what making a choice will do for you, right? Again, like if you're trying to choose between jobs or moving or just different situations, we can have all these like anxieties about what is this going to mean? How's my life going to be different if I work at this place or move or this or that, or if I choose this person or someone else, like all that kind of stuff. And like the card tells us, right? Like you can't know. We can try to feel what's going to be best for us. We can try to intuit it. We can try to sit again with our feelings and try to make decisions based off of um, what we know to be true at the time. But there is no real way to know what decision will be quote unquote best for you. So we have to make it based on, what we know in the moment and with the idea that, well, things can always change in the future too. Just because you make a decision now doesn't mean that you're stuck in that forever. And also that maybe by making the decision or by making this choice, like again, you have no idea what else is going to fall into place or kind of what this might actually lead to, even when we try to think it all through. Um, in that sense. So let's dive in and see what the cards have to say today on this topic. I'm very curious. I'm going to be pulling cards from the Citadel, a fantasy oracle deck by Ben Inkrite. This is my newest deck, and I'm still enjoying getting to know it. Yeah, and I'm going to be thinking about, right, what does it feel like to, when our intuition is showing us one road or the other? How do we, allow our feelings to come up and not to be scared of the potential of getting sort of in deep, whatever that means, right? Getting invested in a job or caring about a person or moving because that feels right for you, even if where you live right now on paper is seemingly fine. So how do we, right, feel into that in our body? What does intuition feel like in that sense? How do we know when our intuition is telling us like one thing or another? How do we sit in this in between space and then make a decision without sort of letting our fears guide us? And I pulled the Scholar in reverse. So this is investigation and research. And just from my initial thoughts on this card, it's telling us do not overthink. So let's see what the book actually has to say, but that's sort of my inkling about what this means. If you think about a scholar being, right, investigating or researching, right, wanting to think everything through, look it all up, see what the best decision is without actually sort of exploring the fact that, right, sometimes we already know what the best decision is, even if it doesn't make sense on paper or if other people might want us to do something else. So the scholar, I'm just going to read the reverse since it is reverse. So it says, the reason why it seems as if there's no good solution to your current situation is that right now there is no solution to be found at all. Frustrating though it may be to realize, there are no rewards to be gained for the work that you've put in. Take this chance to reevaluate what you're doing and focus your energy elsewhere. I think this is the third time I've pulled this card in reverse, I think even. So I guess there is still no solution to be found right now, and that's frustrating. But it's also telling us, right, stop investing in like the thing that maybe like, again, makes sense on paper. Again, whether that's like where you live or a job, it sounds like whatever that is, right now we're in the in-between space and that there's no need to go back to that or put more energy into it or this or that. And that actually we need to, right, reevaluate what we're doing and focus our energy elsewhere, and that's okay. Right, maybe we're making a different decision, or we can't really dwell on the past or what maybe like went wrong, or what did we do, or why didn't it work out this way. Like we just need to think about, okay, well, like where is in my opinion, the universe leading me next? Where else can I what else can I feel into? What emotions are coming up? Like I said, what's making me feel like I'm so scared of moving forward in that way? All right, so links for the tarot decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.